I would love to see their argument as to how Daniel Craig was somehow like a lamer version of James Bond. I would love to see that, because he was actually probably the most hardcore Bond we've gotten. Like, the only one that gets as hardcore as Daniel Craig would probably be Timothy Dalton. Wait, is there something? Like, Ryan Kinel posted on James Bond recently, too, and so did Matt Walsh. Did something happen with James Bond? Oh, it's an hour long. I mean, James Bond definitely wouldn't be considered woke, I would think, at all. But woke activists just ruined James Bond. Okay, let's see.
We've seen woke activists come after nearly every single franchise in modern entertainment, and that includes James Bond. With what we saw with Daniel Craig's era of James Bond, a softening of James Bond, a demasculinizing of James Bond, a James Bond with feelings.
Did he watch the same Daniel Craig James Bond stuff I did? That Daniel Craig was pretty hardcore as James Bond. What the fuck is he talking about?
Knew that it was only a matter of time before they came for the source material itself.
Now, I've done the audiobook of the first James Bond book, Casino Royale. It's got some questionable content for sure. I mean, one of the things I remember it talking about is how James Bond likes having sex with women who are unwilling. It's kind of messed up. Now, should we be editing these books? I have mixed feelings. Like, I get the edit because, like, they want to sell copies, and, like, some of this stuff is really questionable, and it's going to be tough to sell copies. So from a capitalist perspective, it actually makes sense to edit these books. But, like, from a historical perspective, I'm not as cool with it. Maybe if we make sure just to keep the originals in circulation. I don't know. I'm weird. I'm not clear. Yeah.
And with everything we've seen going on right now with old literature, with all these sensitivity readers deciding that this is too offensive, we can't have something.
Sensitivity readers? Most of the time, what the fuck is this? Sensitivity readers. What is sensitivity readers? What does that even mean? Okay, sensitivity readers rewrite James Bond books. So, was this what he's looking at? Like, ground? What? I've never heard of this. I'm in the wrong tab. That's what's going on. Okay, so remove content deemed offensive by to remove content. That's the exact headline. The website looks different. The Blaze. Oh, this is the Blaze. That logo looks the same, right? Yeah, it's the Blaze. That looks a little bit more like what he pulled up. A week after censors edited Roald Dahl's classic books to remove content deemed objectionable, sensitivity readers are rewriting. What? Who came up with the sensitivity reader? That seems like not a great name. The Telegram does the original story. James Bond books edited to remove racist references. No. Go away. Reissued version of Ian Fleming's classic will feature a disclaimer review following a review by sensitivity. Wait. James Bond novels have a... God damn it. Stupid... Why does the Blaze not do this? This is frustrating. Is there a reliable source for this? It's sad if Daily Mail's more reliable. Let's see what the New York Post says about it. In a move that might leave some fans shaken, Ian Fleming's James Bond books have been rewritten with modern audiences in mind, with so-called sensitivity experts removing a number of racial references ahead of 007's 70th anniversary. The changes, as we know about Roald Dahl. All of Fleming's thrillers, from Casino Royale to Octopus, will be re-released this spring after Ian Fleming Publications, the company that owns the literary rights to Fleming's work, commissioned a review by Sensitivity. Oh my god, yes, I know that. Go away. New versions of the classic novels will include a disclaimer that reads, "This book was written in a time when terms and attitudes which might be considered offensive by modern readers were commonplace." It adds, "A number of updates have been made in this edition while keeping as close as possible to the original text in the period which it is set in. In some cases, racial descriptors and mentions of the N-word have been completely scrubbed from the text, which Fleming wrote in the 50s and 60s. Wow. In the novel Dr. No, criminals escaping from Bond become gangsters. And the race of the doctor and immigration officer now go unmentioned. The ethnicity of the barman in Thunderball is also omitted, as is the race from the butler from Quantum of Solace. Revisions to the Bond books depend on the market. In America, edits include toned-down sex scenes and modified racial references in Live and Let Die. I would actually like some details. I doubt these books have been released. This is just them talking about while some descriptions of black people have been reworked, other antiquated references remain. For instance, the racial terms Bond uses to refer to Asian people and his unfavorable views of Korean character Oddjob will stay, as will his remarks about the sweet tang of rape. Wow, that one's staying. Okay. So it's not really changing that much, and the homosexuality being a stubborn disability, according to the Telegraph. Wow, so was it really changing? Ian Fleming Publications said, "We reviewed the text of the original Bond books and decided our best course of action was to follow Ian's lead. We have made changes to Live and Let Die that he himself authorized. Following Ian's approach, we looked at the instances of several racial terms across the books and removed a number of individual words or swapped them for terms that are more accepted today, but in keeping with the period of the books that were written. We encourage people to read the books for themselves when the new paperbacks are published." It sounds like a lot of, in my opinion, the worst stuff is still probably going to be in there, so I don't know, it sounds like they're taking out the N-word, and that's about it. I don't know, I'm kind of okay with the re-edits of books, as long as the originals are still available. Because I think there is something to be you look back at it, and, somebody might be, and you explain, hey, this was, the views back then, and, we refined our views back then, since then. There's something that was fine back then, but, now, It's, but, as far as, I'm okay if you just want to do a new edition. That's kind of okay. Just make sure it's known that this is a new edition. This is not the original text. But yeah, it seems like, in my opinion, a lot of the worst stuff I know of is still going to be in there.
That was written 70 years ago out there in public, somebody might get upset if they read it. These people are absolute lunatics that are doing this, but they're now in positions of power. So now we have James
and Ryan Kinel would know about lunatics.
Bond, a franchise that's already been bastardized to some extent, likely will be bastardized even more once they cast the new Bond. Now even the books.
I would love to see their argument as to how Daniel Craig was somehow a lamer version of James Bond. I would love to see that, because he was actually probably the most hardcore Bond we've gotten. The only one that gets as hardcore as Daniel Craig would probably be Timothy Dalton. Now, I don't know, Daniel Craig would even get kind of rapey too. So, yeah.
Even Ian Fleming's classic books are being destroyed by activists. Sensitivity readers rewrite James Bond books to remove content deemed offensive by modern readers. A week after censors edited Roald Dahl's classic children's book, things like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach, Matilda, these are the books we're talking about from Roald Dahl. To remove content deemed objectionable, sensitivity readers are rewriting Ian Fleming's classic or iconic novels about James Bond. Fleming's Bond books are scheduled to...
I mean, it's just like Jeremy Griggs, this low-effort shit. I'm just reading an article. I guess I just read an article, but, like, I'm trying to figure out the true story behind what the fuck he's talking about.
Be reissued in April to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the publication of Casino Royale, the first novel in the 007 franchise. Ian Fleming...
That's a good point, Robert Hamilton. Most of these decisions aren't done by SJWs. They're done by Gen X and Boomers. Yeah, these decisions are actually, like, they're talking about their, like, SJWs, O's, calling them sensitivity readers, and I'll even say the news report outlets are calling them sensitivity readers, so I can give Ryan Kinel a pass on that one, because that's not a great name for him. But, like, what we're dealing with is businesses who don't want their books, like, people to look at their books and say these are dated and out of date and, you know, maybe we shouldn't be reading them. So they're trying to update them for a modern audience so people can read them. This isn't an issue with SJWs. If you have an issue with this, it's a capitalism issue.
In publications, the company that owns the rights commissions sensitivity readers to pore over the James Bond novels and scrub any offensive content before the republication. The reissued books will reportedly remove the race and ethnicity of certain characters. Well, hey, there you go. That's what we want, right? We want to remove the diversity. We don't want any diversity in these things if you refer to someone in the wrong way. Fleming's books will have description.
Yeah, no, I'm guessing it's probably because he used the N-word or just not questionable descriptors for people or not good choices. No.
Of black people reworked or removed.
Yeah, I remember the Dr. Seuss thing, and it was something that it was by the Seuss family estate, and it was something that even when Dr. Seuss was alive, he endorsed, and he would like be for redoing his books for a new generation. So that when that came out and they made a big deal out of it, it actually made sense to me. Yeah.
This is stupid.
It's an excellent point, Sue.
This is pointless. Guess what? If you don't want to read how people were talking about things 70 years ago, don't read books from 70 years ago. Is that difficult? Is that difficult to understand? If you don't want to be offended by the language that was used in the 1940s, 1950s,
Well, I mean, the issue is how he's framing it. Like, yeah, okay, so you want to say keep the old books around? Cool, okay, fine. The issue is they're not going to sell under that new banner, Ryan. Like I said, it's a capitalism issue.
1960s, don't read material from back then. Okay, if you don't want to be offended by what's in the Bible, maybe don't read the Bible. Is it that hard to get? But no, these woke activists will come for everything.
It's not woke activists, dude. It's fucking businesses making money.
The Telegraph reported, in the sensitivity reader-approved version of Live and Let Die, Bond's assessment that would-be African criminals in the Gold and Diamond Traders are pretty law-abiding chaps, I should have thought, except when they've drunk too much, becomes pretty law-abiding chaps, I should have thought. Oh, heaven forbid that James Bond's perspective might not be in line with what modern readers are expecting. Go fuck yourselves. Like, absolutely go fuck yourselves. And more stuff out there about removing some of the sexualized content and everything. You can't have James Bond being horny. How dare a man want to fuck a woman? Like that.
God, he's really triggered by... well, he's not actually triggered. He's putting on a show. But... yeah. No, they're apparently the sweet tang of rape is still going to be in the book. So there's still going to be some pretty questionable sexual content, right?
The absolute terrible. I bet if James Bond was fucking trans, they'd have no problem with any of the sexualized content in these books. But because James Bond is a white cis male, and for the record, will always be a white cis male, regardless of who they cast to play the next James Bond, that's why they're offended by it. This is a complete and total joke. I hope everybody pushes back on this stuff.
Really weird takes.
Does not support this stuff when it comes out because they are trying to rewrite history. They're trying to rewrite culture, trying to rewrite entertainment right before our
last time I checked, James Bond isn't history. If they were actually rewriting like history books to change the history, I would have an issue. And last time I checked, the only people really pushing to rewrite history were Republicans. So, yeah, I would have an issue with that one. These are fictional books. And like I said, it's a capitalism thing. These are businessmen wanting this done to sell more copies.
Very
plus the just the optics. Now they're in the news cycle with people talk about how they're rewriting the books. Yeah, you're going to get people who are offended by it, but you're also going to get people who are like, "Oh, let's check out these new books."
eyes. If you're offended by words that were used 70 years ago, don't use those words in modern writing, but also don't read stuff from 70 years ago. It's not that difficult to understand. Critical Drinker put out a tweet. You're offended by a 60-plus-year-old literature. Here's an awesome idea. Fuck off. Do the entire world a favor and fuck right off. Can't say it much better than that. To the woke activists and lunatics that want to do.
It's not woke activists and lunatics that are controlling the IP and republishing it. It's businessmen. It's publishers.
Destroy culture, that want to destroy entertainment. Go fuck yourselves. Do not let them do this. Do not support things when they go and they censor them like this. Tell everybody that you will not be supporting changing the works of Ian Fleming. What an absolute tragedy that they're trying to destroy James Bond.
It's not like James Bond was a fucking saint, bro. So that's all it is. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but okay.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.